Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Level 1 News. Today is January 25th. And we have really large sections this week, so the breakdown's going to be a little bit strange. I think today is just government and then like two teeny little stories about robots.
It's a robot government sandwich. It's weird. We have one robot story, which is a good lead into our first government story.
It's not. Oh yeah, I guess it is kind of, but it's like very thin. It's more like crackers instead of bread. Also, you may notice Ryan's not here. His heat went out.
His heat died. He's frozen.
Yeah, which kind of sucks. So he's got someone looking at it right now. So we're doing the news with just two today.
He's even more salty than usual.
Yeah, he's kind of losing it.
All right, our first story.
Oh, Elon Musk's brain implant company is inching toward human trials. This is one of our robot stories. It's not really it's kind of robot-esque.
It's Neuralink. Remember Neuralink? It's the Elon Musk quote where he said, "Well, the monkeys aren't unhappy,"
which isn't like a glowing endorsement. They're looking to maybe start human trials soon. I think they have job postings up on their website, which people are speculating is because they are preparing to get the FDA involved.
It seems likely that one of the first human trials will be, somebody who is in a vegetative state, or somebody that the hospital otherwise, they're just completely paralyzed and they have no ability to communicate. It's like, all right, let's put this in and see what happens. It's going to be really horrifying if it turns out that person was conscious and awake the entire time they've been laying in the bed.
There's a word, it's locked-in syndrome.
Yeah.
I'm terrified of that.
Yeah.
I'm kind of mixed on the Neuralink stuff, because on one hand, it sounds like it could be a really good thing for people who have that sort of syndrome, but it's also, what are the horrifying dystopian realities of what that's going to turn into, like advertising directly in your brain?
Well, it'll turn into a competitive thing first. The people that get that will have to have it, and they will have way better ability to do certain kinds of jobs. And then either the value in doing those jobs goes way down, or it becomes basically that you have to have an implant in order to
compete.
Yeah, whatever that job is, until eventually everybody has to have it. But whether we get there in 1 or 100 years.
Once again, Gattaca.
Yeah, and our second story.
Let's take a drink. Felony charges are first in a fatal crash involving Autopilot. This is kind of two stories, right? Like we had 2 copies of this story, I think, in our list.
Yeah, we've got Tesla on Autopilot killed 2 people in Gardenia.
Is the driver guilty of manslaughter? Wendell, you were pretty damning of this. You were like, yeah, he is.
Yeah, Autopilot is not automatic pilot.
I don't think anyone is questioning whether he's guilty, though the guy is out on bail, which is crazy. He killed 2 people. I think the question is, like, is Tesla and other people who are claiming Autopilot and branding it in such a way, is there any liability for them in addition to the liability to the guy?
Tiny little bit for misrepresenting that. It's like, look how good this is. But every time you start the car, every time you do anything, there's all of the appropriate legal disclaimers. I'm sure that the Tesla lawyers have adequately insulated things.
The standout, the boiler snake has thoughts about that. It is a very cold day here, so he'll be probably chiming in a lot. The thing that really stood out to me in this story was that there was just one little sentence, and it mentioned Tesla no longer has a media department. And I was like, is that smart? They kind of need the PR, any PR boost they can get that's outside of Musk. But
they'll bring it back once they finish the move to Texas. They're moving to California, remember, because California was being too weird about the whole shutdown thing.
They want us to take care of our workers, and they don't like it that they're working in 100-degree heat.
It's a dry heat. It should be fine.
It'll be fine.
No, it's not fine. Speaking of things that are not fine.
This is a strange. FedEx asks FAA to let it install anti-missile lasers on its cargo planes. I missed the details of this story.
It turns out that, in certain countries, the cargo planes that fly overhead, it's like a giant aluminum piñata. And so if you shoot it down, you get all these wonderful presents and supplies, and
Christmas comes early.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I'm pretty sure that we saw this in movies like Mad Max and RoboCop and other things like that, where the train just defends itself.
Well, we literally just did a story last week, I guess, about trains that were being looted in California. So, maybe this is just the next step, right? You just install lasers.
I can't wait for the AI robots that automatically administer less than lethal countermeasures for the people that are trying to cause problems.
We promise there's a happy story at the very end of this episode if you just hold on a little longer.
Also involving robots. Oh, this is a fun one.
The FTC is reportedly investigating Meta VR's division for antitrust violations. Surprising no one.
So Meta, VR, Oculus, it's Facebook. Facebook VR, these are things that happen before Meta and before the metaverse, which is the reason for the rebranding. It's just saying, hey, wait, are you locking people into things? And the answer is yeah.
Yeah.
This is just good old Miss Lena Khan doing fun, exciting things.
You have to have a Facebook account to use this VR headset.
Yeah. Our next story is really, there's a lot more going on here, I think. History will know in 3 to 6 months if this was right, but we'll see.
FSB arrests REvil ransomware gang members.
So this was the Russian Federal Security Service said today that it has raided and shut down the operations of the REvil ransomware gang. This was an international effort. There was coordination between U.S. and Russian teams. My read of this is that there is some undertones here that is basically we're doing some stuff in some other parts of Europe, and we are more than happy to cooperate with your law enforcement investigation. But if you don't like what we're doing in other parts of Russia, we're not going to cooperate with you. Other parts of Europe, it's like we're not going to cooperate anymore. So this is the Kaseya attack. Remember that? You know, the really big hack. And so there's some messaging here maybe that this kind of international cooperation wouldn't happen if there's an international incident involving the borders of another country. That's a little, I don't know.
That does seem to be getting worse, doesn't it? I mean, I don't know anything about that situation fully, but it seems like every other day there's another headline that's like...
Yeah, it's like I read the headline.
More troops by the border.
And then I thought about it, and it's like the timing of this is very suspect.
Yeah.
Very, very suspect.
I didn't even make that connection.
They hope that you don't, you know.
Yeah, but when you think about it, it's like, oh, that kind of feels icky, doesn't it?
Another piece of news where they hope that you don't make a connection.
Democrats unveil bill to ban online surveillance advertising.
So the headline also, there were also 5 Republicans that supported this. So if you go read the bill, which I would encourage you to do, this really just bans tracker-based advertisement. But get a load of this. It doesn't ban these mega corporations buying your purchase history and colluding on that. So like your credit card purchase history, and you have an account to log into whatever and do whatever on the website. It doesn't ban
email mailing lists, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it doesn't like if Google and Visa want to get together and share everything that they know about you, this doesn't ban that.
I mean, that's a step in the right direction, but I wonder if it was like hamstrung at all, where maybe they proposed something more intense and then it was like, well, we'll just do this.
It's really just they want to make it so that Facebook, like, remember when we did the stories where you could, like, you want to sell your house in a really upscale neighborhood. This is a thing that happens apparently. I don't know. This seems crazy to me because, you know, we're not in an area of the country that this is that's this.
It's not an opulent area, yeah.
Yeah, and so I was like, I've got my $4 million villa. I'm going to go on Facebook and going to take out an ad, and I'm filling out the check boxes, and it's basically like, I want to show this ad to wealthy people that live in this area, also no black people. Oh. And Facebook was like, yeah, that sounds great. We'll let you advertise with that. So this bill is to really just try to stop those protected classes from being any kind of a category. So it doesn't actually stop surveillance advertising. It really just juices up the penalties if you're caught dealing with some of those protected classes where somebody could actually take out an ad that says don't advertise to black people.
An improvement, but maybe not as far as it could have gone.
Now, if they want to base whether or not to show you something on your your purchase history or something just incredibly invasive, your medical history, I mean, there's not really, yeah. Well, it depends on what you voluntarily give up, but yeah, you get into some really dark scenarios with that. So you should really read the bill because it's disappointing because it sounds good and then you read it and it's just...
It's like, well, that's better, but couldn't we do even better? No.
And then going to the European Union, man, there is some stuff happening in Europe the UK and the EU.
Did it seem like this article was trying to spin this in a really positive light?
Yes.
Okay,
I
was like,
trying to spin this in a positive
this seems
way.
like this would be bad, but
Yeah, no.
EU wants to build its own DNS infrastructure with built-in filtering capabilities. That last part is what's like the ding 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 red flag.
Yeah, you dirty hippies, and you're accessing. You're not accessing the allowed narrative. You're downloading pirated content and doing naughty things.
You're reading permies.com.
Yeah,
Permaculture gardening.
YouTube DL. Oh, we'll talk about that in the business section. But it's like we need to block YouTube DL at the country level, at the European Union level, because your YouTube DL interferes with profits. Even though we make people pay money to license all forms of media, and they have a right to private copying, but we need to shut down YouTube DL.
That's what it's really about.
Yeah.
In theory, well, the way they kind of talk about it in the article, they're like, oh, it would give EU more independence, and I was like, well, that sounds good, and then I was like, but you're still trying to control the internet, and the flow of information, which is a negative.
It's not the European Union has a coalition to create DNS. It's the European Union has a coalition to create DNS and will block all alternatives.
Yeah. It's so sad.
Yeah. Switching gears.
Chinese regulator denies issuing guidelines on internet giants' investments and fundraisings.
So, okay. I mean, I guess this is a fun story, but it's like such rules would intensify the oversight from China's increasingly assertive regulators who've, over the past year, informally freewheeling internet giants in areas for deal-making or handling of user data. So this is, like, formally they didn't issue...
Oh.
What's going
on?
Formally, they didn't issue guidelines, but there was definitely a wink and a nod. So, there you go.
China's trying to control things, but so is the U.S.
Yeah, look at this.
U.S. examining Alibaba's cloud unit to determine whether it poses a national security risk, Reuters, citing sources.
Yeah, the Biden administration is reviewing e-commerce giant Alibaba's cloud business to determine whether it poses U.S. risk to national security, according to 3 people briefed on the matter. It's like, okay, how would it interfere with U.S. national security? Well, companies could buy hosting there. This company could offer hosting that's cheaper than market rates, which might attract U.S. customers, and then
they all go down.
Yeah, or
abruptly.
Information is lost, or data is exfiltrated, or whatever. It's hard to say. It's hard to say, but we'll keep that in mind as we come back to that. There was also this that happened in the UK. This is also really big news.
The most unflattering picture they could have picked of him. Revealed, UK government plans publicity blitz to undermine privacy of your chats.
So the UK has it in mind again that they really need to block end-to-end encryption. They want to be able to snoop on everything. And so they're planning a media campaign where they're going to say, think of the children. We really need this. We really need these law enforcement powers, because it's a deeply unpopular idea. Like the UK citizenry are not all complete morons. So they understand.
The ad campaign's just going to be like pictures of text bubbles, and it's like an adult telling a kid to send nudes or something, and then it'll be like, do you want your kid to be part of this? Wouldn't you want to know? Yeah.
Having strong encryption is as important for a society's digital health as not having all of your potable water go through lead pipes is for physical health. It's like, oh, we really want to block end-to-end encryption the way that we want to block water pipes made of materials other than lead.
Do you think the social media people and the designers on this, do you think they're excited about this project?
No, I think they're probably just, it's
going to be really mediocre work.
Yeah. I got to eat.
Yeah.
Please just give me money. I got to eat. So it's like they've hired a high-end ad agency to mobilize public opinion about it. I really hope that this campaign goes so well that there are enough clued-in people in the UK that it severely cripples this ad agency's clientele. And in fact, if you have there's some really high rollers in the Level 1 audience. So if you use this ad agency, or your company does, maybe find another ad agency.
We know they're desperate because they're working with this initiative, but make it worse for them.
There is no scenario in which protect the children and outlawing end-to-end encryption, those things actually make sense. And it just so happens that you can use the lack of end-to-end encryption to do other things. We've covered it here before. The US, the UK, Australia, and Germany, and another country are part of this Five Eyes network, where it's like US citizens or the U.S. government is not technically allowed under the law to spy on U.S. citizens, but it's easy to get around that. You can ask your German friends to spy, and similarly, it's like the German government is not supposed to, by law, spy on German citizens.
It's a third party, so it's fine.
Yeah, it's exactly right. And here we are. Here's a Forbes article, if you don't believe me.
WhatsApp ordered to help U.S. agents spy on Chinese phones. No explanation required. Let's explain that.
Yeah, they're not. Now, China's not one of the Five Eyes countries. They're not. We're not sharing data with China. It's Russia, and maybe some other countries that are doing that side of it. But the U.S. and the U.K. and Germany and Australia, we share data. New Zealand, we share a lot of data about stuff that's going on. So it's really interesting that the argument here is like, well, hey, these Chinese phones, they're not U.S. citizens because they're Chinese phones. Well, let's just spy on all of them. They don't have any rights as U.S. citizens. So it's like, well, there's a human rights component to this, isn't there?
But they're humans, though. No.
So you can read about this on Forbes because everybody's doing it. And this is why all the governments of the world really don't like end-to-end encryption, because if it's done well, it can interfere with this kind of spying. Why do the governments need this kind of spying?
Because they need to know everything all the time, even if it creates so many false leads that they can't follow up on all of them.
Now, if you're outside the U.S. and you're saying, ha ha ha, Forbes, U.S. institution, the BBC would like a word.
Winter Olympics, athletes advised to use burner phones in Beijing.
Are you connecting the dots yet? Really? I mean, come on. Connect the dots.
I do love that story, though. Do you think that the Olympic Committee for your country has to pay for the burner phones, or do you have to pay for that out of pocket?
No, you got to pay for that out of pocket yourself. Yeah.
That's an expensive data plan, too.
Yeah, and it's like, it's like these are the world's superpowers that are having a spat. What about other countries? Well, I guess it's bad news.
Israeli citizens targeted by police using Pegasus spyware, report claims.
So were these, terrorists? It's not looking that way. Looks like they were journalists. Some activists, but that had not had a history of any kind of violence or, activism in the sense of let's all come together and try to stop, murdering people and having extrajudicial things and that kind of thing. It's like, oh, we can't have that level of
It's probably
activism.
just like basic stuff like labor rights, like let's have a strike or something. And they're like, no. That's not happening.
Yeah, it's funny how that works, Wouldn't all the countries are really, really worried about a Zebellion?
Oh yeah, did you read that? I don't think we included that because it's an old article, but there was apparently the Pentagon is doing a war game against
Generation Z.
Yeah, and they called it the Zebellion. And the things that they're rebelling against are low wages and the poverty gap. And it's like, well, does the U.S. stand for that? I don't.
Anyway, no. The Wall Street Journal, Biden to expand National Security Agency role in government cybersecurity. Could this possibly have anything to do with weakening encryption? I don't know.
Glad to see that they're focused on important things.
Yeah, we had another bipartisan bill, so we had to get all that out of the way so that we can also say this, because the government needs leverage over tech companies in order to get them to do things like modify their application to spy on all Chinese phones.
Senate committee votes to advance major tech antitrust bill.
So the meat and potatoes of this bill is basically if you're Google or Amazon and you do something to interfere with the business of somebody who is using your services, then there's a whole new class of laws.
There's a whole word for it they described in the article.
That you violated. Which
I cannot remember now. But it was like if someone depends on your service and you make it harder for them to use your service, if they're a competitor.
If you make camera bags, for example, and then Amazon says, we think these are counterfeit camera bags. You need to show us who your vendor is and show us that these are not stolen. And you do that, and then Amazon goes to your vendor and says, we would like this exact same specification, and we're going to give you a lot of money. And also don't sell to those other people anymore. That would run afoul of this. That would be not allowed. That would be what we call anti-competitive.
A lot of companies probably falling under this. Also, what a great gesture on the photo. I would draw that. Like, that would look good as an ink drawing.
This is just like, I imagine this is the dialogue here is, so what you're telling me is that your business managers looked at how well this company was doing in the niche of selling camera bags, and you said, you know what, Amazon Basics could definitely get in on camera bags. Is that what you're telling me?
The camera bags story makes me think that you recently looked for a camera bag and then got angry.
No, that's a pretty famous story where...
Oh, wait, yeah. Was it the leather bags?
Yeah, Amazon got caught red-handed doing exactly that, and they were completely shameless about it. So...
Oops, sucks to suck.
Yeah, and there was nothing... Right now, there's not really anything illegal about that. It's not ethical, but it's definitely not illegal.
Which sucks.
Yeah. Well, speaking of not ethical...
Cambodia's internet may soon be like China's, state-controlled.
Again, are you noticing a pattern here in the government stories?
Well, and they make that sound negative, but it's like, well, the EU's kind of wanting to do the same thing, but it was done like it was positive in that story. It's strange how they wrote it differently.
Who controls the narrative? A benevolent dictator or a conniving despot?
It depends on who's elected for that office.
All right. Switching gears to something that's actually good news.
Oh no. California judge rules Google's confidentiality agreements break labor law. This is really good news.
Yeah, so it took a long time. The Google employees identified as John Doe argued that the broad non-disclosure agreement the company asked him to sign barred him from speaking about his job to other potential employers, amounting to a non-compete clause, which are illegal in California. And the California judges agreed. So this is a pretty big slap to Google. There's going to be a lot of other stuff that comes out of this. And so we're going to refer back to this in future episodes.
Apparently, Google was like crazy too. You couldn't talk to your family about stuff that was happening at your office. Like, you couldn't talk to obviously other employers, but just friends, no one.
Yeah.
You weren't allowed to talk, even if it was something abusive. Like if you had a problem with the superior and the company wasn't doing anything about it, you weren't allowed to talk to anybody about it.
Also, the discrimination suits and some other things like that. It's really. Do you remember the AIT researcher that was dismissed, Gabru? I think she commented on this too because it's basically saying, you know, the non-disclosure agreements and stuff that were in place protected some of the more privileged inside of the company. Meanwhile, she was fired for her opinion about, you know, a paper that carried disclaimers like, this is not the opinion of Google, this is just what we found from our research.
Right.
It's like, oh, that's an interesting dichotomy. But now it's like, no, those agreements are not enforceable and actually illegal under California law. So it's going to be interesting.
How long before Google's like, all right, we're going to Texas, just like Tesla?
I was thinking about that. I was thinking that I think that's one of the logical outcomes from this. This and a couple other rulings that have been against Google. I think they'll
all just start moving to other states.
The executives have to be seriously considering an exodus from California at this point.
How long before there's a law at the federal level? Probably another 50 years.
Yeah, I think the federal level is pretty well locked up in super PACs and federal donations.
Just sniffing each other's farts.
Yeah, so I don't think we have anything that's going to happen there, sadly. Speaking of, I don't think we're going to have anything that happens there, sadly.
Yeah. This, Fed releases long-awaited study on a digital dollar, but doesn't take a position yet on creating one. This was supposed to be due last summer.
Yeah.
And then they took another 6 months to release it, and they're still kind of like, we don't know what our full position is yet. They're actually getting feedback on it, though.
Yeah, they said we're going to open this up for public feedback, but they go out of their way not to take a position. This was more positive overall than I expected.
Yeah.
One of the things that there are undertones here for is things like welfare and entitlement distributions. And so this correctly points out one of the uses of this may be that the federal dollars that are distributed to people that are in hardship, things like, you imagine things like food stamps or other monetary benefits. This would let the federal government directly distribute those funds to the individual, which would eliminate entire swaths of the bureaucracy. And
companies that just operate trying to get that kind of money.
Yeah, and so it's like 2 lines in the entire report that are like, yeah, we could just distribute the money directly to the citizenry, and it would eliminate all this stuff. And then it stops short of saying, and that would be amazing because it would be so much more efficient. It just says it would be more efficient because there's less overhead, but it doesn't explain, the vast insanity of the overhead of those. I mean, think about like, you worked retail, about the software and the insanity of like, you can buy this but not that on certain kinds of entitlements.
Yeah, like WIC was a pain in the butt. I think they have a card system now, so it's easier. But at the time when I was working as a cashier, it was a literal paper paper check.
Yeah.
And you would have to enter in a bunch of like codes to make it work. And if they got something that was just the wrong size, it was the right brand, right thing, it wouldn't go through, and then you'd have to run back and get it, and it's very annoying.
And the reality is that the privacy on those things is already gone. That's surveilled to the nth degree. They know exactly what you bought on those kind of card systems because of the way it is. It's already there. Using a direct distribution would solve all of that. The only thing that they could find that might be bad for the federal government in that scenario is that they said that it would make the central banks liable, or it would make the federal banks liable, whereas right now the feds hand to smaller banks who then are responsible for getting it from A to B. So if something goes wrong with that, then somebody other than the Fed is responsible. And so they're basically, it's like, we have the money and we distribute the money, but we know that we're never going to be liable for problems because we hand it off to other people who deal with the money and we don't have to worry about it. It's like, well, that's kind of a narrow-minded position to take, but it's also revealing that that's the only thing they could find wrong with it.
So. I watched this is maybe a little heavy for the news, but whatever, we're already kind of depressing. I watched a documentary on YouTube about some of the stuff with Katrina and the disaster response for that.
Yeah.
And it was just layers and layers and layers of bureaucracy, and then it just became like a weird political push and pull.
Yeah, a lot of those stories.
And no one got their stuff because of it.
A lot of those stories are really just Kafka-esque. You know, like Bob froze to death because he was working on page 4 of his, 7-page packet submission thing.
Well, there were like talks about, they call it like the Louisiana Navy, where it was just locals who came to come help, and they got turned away because they're like, oh, we don't need the help. But it was really just administrator oversight. They didn't realize, like that fog of war, they didn't realize what was actually happening. So they thought they had it covered, but they didn't. That's
also happening with vets. There were a lot of vets that were exposed to really bad chemicals.
Yeah.
And because we don't have the stuff in place to deal with it, a lot of vets are not getting health care. They're like, this is definitely not service related. And it's like, oh, it definitely is.
There's so many layers of bureaucracy that you can't actually get seen by anybody.
Yeah, exactly. So speaking of layers of bureaucracy.
Bank of Russia calls for full ban on crypto.
They suggest making crypto trading, mining, and usage illegal, but owning it would be okay.
Oh, why the hell would you just own it?
How do you own it and not use it? Is that like Schrodinger's coin?
They just want you to be diamond hands. You're always holding.
Speaking of somebody who's probably also diamond hands.
NYC Mayor Adams will convert his city paycheck to cryptocurrency via Coinbase. I think it was his first 3, right?
Yeah, he said, I'm going to receive cryptocurrency to do this. But it turns out cryptocurrency is not legal tender. So Department of Labor rules mean that he can't. Yeah.
You can't accept coupons for payment. It's not right. But there was the other mayor who was doing it. I think it was Miami. But he was only doing 1. But the New York guy was like, I'll up you. I'll do 3.
The New York guy was trying to alter their infrastructure to do that. But it turns out the Department of Labor will not let you do that.
Which probably for the better.
Yeah. And it's fine. I mean, he can use Coinbase to convert his his
real
fiat
dollars.
currency into crypto. That's totally fine.
That article mentioned some other people like ball players, sports people. Rogers, I think that's a baseball guy, also does that for his money.
They still get paid in cash. They just then
they have to convert it. Yeah.
So speaking of things that aren't real.
Havana syndrome, unlikely caused by hostile foreign power, CIA says.
Well, that's not actually what the CIA said. So the CIA investigated this. So what happened is a bunch of people got mysteriously sick, and then a lot more people, to the tune of something like 1,000, said, hey, I've been having mysterious illnesses too, and I work in the same kind of sector as these people that got sick. What's going on? So the CIA has investigated this 1,000-ish cases, and there are 12 that are unexplainable, but the other ones are attributable to environmental causes, stress, other underlying health conditions, or anything like that.
My favorite one of those is environmental, though, because it's like, well, what in the environment? And it's never specified in the article what they mean by that.
It turns out that Bob's cube was right next to the office microwave. So he was sitting inches away from a microwave through a drywall and pine wall. And it was a leaky microwave. Sorry, Bob.
He could the worst part was that he could just smell his coworkers' tuna every day when they were microwaving it for some reason.
No matter what you're cooking, it always smells like burritos. It's
terrible.
Like, that's the smell of your own brain cooking, Bob. I'm sorry. Oh, that's kind of dark.
But he can't hear it.
But this is a feel-good story. We've got an amazing robot feel-good story.
Rescuers save dog from drowning with a sausage and a drone.
So the story here is there was a dog that was trapped on a sandbar or something like that when the tide was coming in, and it was too stupid to know which way the tide was going to come in, and it was too dangerous for somebody to go and get the dog. So they got a drone, and they put a sausage on the drone, and they used the drone with the sausage to lure the dog to somewhere that would be safe.
I love that. I love it. I'm confused why, like, yelling at the dog didn't have it come back, because, like, Rue's pretty stupid, but if you yell for her, she generally comes back.
Just didn't want to come back.
Yeah, he was like, nah, I'm going to keep out here on this sandbar.
The owners were there, and they were able to assist. And at one point, the dog actually did catch the sausage on the drone, and they thought it was going to pull. They thought the dog was going to pull
it out of the sky.
So,
but they got it back up, and he's safe and sound now.
Yay, what a feel-good story.
Yeah, ignore all those sad stories about the internet becoming more and more closed off. Oh, there's a picture of him. Just ignore all the sadness and look at that happy picture of that dog.
He looks so, like, I just had a brush with death. He
Yeah,
doesn't appreciate it.
He looks like he was cold. Now he's, like, warming up again.
All right, what do we got for business? We got a big business section.
I think it's all business, right?
We'll probably have business in one other section. And then Friday... We've got like 18 nonsense stories.
The smorgasbord of other stuff that doesn't get mentioned.
It's crazy.
So,
all right. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye. Oh, we hit start. Hello. Welcome back to the Level 1 News. Today's January 26th, 2021. And today we're doing social and business. No. Yes, business, because we already did government.
Ryan's hot because his heater exploded.
Yeah. So we're back. This is also a pretty long section, so strap in. We're going to start with social.
Sounds like a steel mill, he said. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
All right, our first story.
Hope they fixed it. A Pakistani woman was given the death sentence for sending blasphemous messages on WhatsApp and Facebook.
Yeah, so Mark Zuckerberg's responsible for another death.
Well, according to the article, the woman probably won't be killed, but vigilante justice is such that she'll probably be stoned by people while waiting for a full sentence. And I was like, oh, that's worse.
Again, yeah.
Yeah.
So the warrant, is still subject to confirmation of the high court, but
her defense wasn't great. I mean, it's BS that she has to defend anything at all, but I guess some guy was talking to her and basically somehow managed to convince her to say something against Muhammad, I think. You're not allowed to say that kind of stuff in Pakistan, and here we are. There's a record of that message somewhere.
Yeah, definitely worth murdering somebody over.
A sad story to start. This one's also kind of sad, but maybe in a different way. In China, you can go to college to become a social media influencer, and look at all the people with their selfie sticks.
Oh Lord, just please no.
That seems strange coming from China, because China seems like it's really competitive academically. Like, they don't seem to have a lot of the nonsense stuff that we have here. But I guess this is a thing. Do you think the state will step in and say no?
Yes, eventually they're going to.
Yeah, because they did that with video games.
If they're worried about video games, then this is even worse.
They also banned, what was it, mukbang? Mukbang? I don't know how you pronounce it.
Yeah, well, just even you couldn't even stream to Twitch, eating a banana. That's too suggestive.
So I mean, how are you supposed to make money as an influencer in China?
Speaking of influencing and things that are just disastrous for society.
I hate this. Bring in the clones. Instagrammers are genetically replicating their pets. And the sad thing about this article isn't so much the cloning itself, but more just the example they talk about was this woman who has a dog, and her dog is Instagram famous. Her dog unfortunately passes away, and she gets it cloned immediately and continues the account, which makes it seem more like it's a business decision than a I miss my pet decision.
Her striking wolf-dog hybrid.
And it's the same, not the same, but it's a cloned dog. Like, you would never know that something happened to the first one because all the images look the same. And apparently that's pretty common.
I like the giant ethical
concerns. Yeah.
It's like blink, blink, blink.
Oh, blink is depreciated in Firefox, so I don't know. I had something about that. It feels dystopian to me. I don't think I would ever get Rue or our cat Cricket cloned.
Yeah, we talked on the stream about that before, is because the The chat always asks so if Ryan will clone his cats. And he's just like, no.
No, like when they're gone, you get a new one. You get a new personality, fresh start.
No. Speaking of humans being awful.
A YouTuber accused of crashing a plane for views. Now the feds are investigating.
It'll take probably about a year, maybe 2.
Yeah.
But this guy, he was flying this plane, and then he's like, oops, the engine stopped working. A good thing I've got a parachute. I always carry a parachute. So he parachuted out.
My favorite thing about the internet is that people immediately called him on it. And it's people who are apparently aviation experts. And there are all these videos calling him out like, normally people don't carry parachutes in planes this tiny. And if you look at the instrument gauge at this particular timestamp, you'll see it's already turned off. And it's, wow.
Yeah. So it's just like, oh, there's a GIF. And it's just like, oh.
We thought our audience was pedantic. But apparently aviation YouTube is a whole nother level.
Yeah. I mean, it almost seems like he could have landed safely if he was still aboard.
It doesn't look like it's going that fast. But, I mean, it is like a GoPro footage, so.
Yeah, Lord only knows. So, I don't know.
What a waste, if that's true.
Yeah. Well, I mean.
A waste of resources. Let me just crash a plane.
There's no such thing as bad publicity.
I mean, to be fair, we'd never heard of this guy.
Yeah.
Or knew about aviation YouTube until this very moment.
Yeah. So, but again, publicity stunt. He'll probably be fine. Worst case scenario, he'll probably lose his pilot's license. So again, probably fine.
Yeah, I mean, if he gets money being an influencer.
This is sort of a fun story from Gizmodo.
Social media bans of scientific misinformation aren't helpful, researchers say.
There are more effective ways to fight scientific misinformation than banning and removing content. Because, you start removing stuff, and then people do this, and it's like, what have you got to hide? So, I don't know.
It seems like, just allowing people to safely debunk it without getting demonetized would be a way.
But that's impossible. You can't even discuss things. You can't even, I don't know. It's fine. Speaking of all aboard the hype train.
Facebook and Instagram may help you create and sell NFTs. This article was kind of a nothing burger.
This article is absolutely nothing burger. It's also taken over Twitch. Twitch is, I'm really surprised because this article was written yesterday. So the chief security officer that I have a lot of respect for at Twitch is out. It's very sudden, very weird, very not a lot of commentary from that. And this is at the same time that Twitch is letting you have an NFT. That Twitter is letting you have an NFT. Did I say Twitch before? I meant Twitter.
Yeah, you said Twitter.
Twitter, sorry. The Twitter's chief security officer.
Okay.
The Twitter's chief security officer is leaving. This is after Jack Dorsey, has, of course,
yeah, they're really hemorrhaging people.
Exit, kind of thing. On Twitter, you can now have an NFT avatar, and it will show your avatar in a hexagon instead of a circle.
Oh.
If you have a minted
custom
avatar.
SVG shape. That was some extra CSS on some poor intern.
Now, what's amazing is that if you right-click and save one of the, Bored Ape Yacht Club images and then remint that yourself on another exchange and then connect that to Twitter, it also considers that an NFT.
They're trying so hard to make it a thing, and I don't understand the appeal. Maybe I'll look back. Will I look back on this in 5 years and be like, I don't know what I was thinking. NFTs are great, but
they're looking at that. They're in a boardroom somewhere inside of Twitter, and they're saying M&M just paid $182,000 for a line drawing of an ape. How do we get in on that?
As someone who can draw things, I'm like, how do I get in on that?
Yeah, well, Facebook and Meta would like to help you.
I don't think anyone wants my drawings that badly. Store.level1text.com.
Yeah, you can get the drawings. You can subscribe at the higher tier and get whatever.
Yeah, that's true. You could do that. If you want custom.
Speaking of things that leaked in the news, or that leaked as part of other things, the antitrust. You remember the antitrust lawsuit from 2020? People are only just now going through the unredacted evidence of that.
Zuckerberg and Pichai allegedly signed off on a legal Facebook-Google ad deal.
So this makes it look like there was some kind of an ad deal going on behind the scenes where when you have an auction for an ad, instead of making you pay the highest price, they would say, oh, we'll just make you pay the second highest price as a way of, kind of getting rid of the if you bid $1,000 and somebody else bids $10,000, then you would only pay $1,000 for it because that's the second highest. But this makes it seem like it was actually third tier, and so Google would pocket the difference.
So what is this photo?
It's it's a little nebulous. It's a little.
It has a threatening aura.
Yeah, so it's like they personally signed off on a secret advertising deal that allegedly gave Facebook special privileges on Google's ad platform. I don't know. We'll see. There will be more from this.
Yeah.
Don't worry. And speaking of things that I also didn't have on my bingo card for 2022.
Walmart is quietly preparing to enter the metaverse. Have you seen the video of this?
No.
There's I don't know if it's real or not, but I've seen it on Twitter. There's like a video of a VR shopping experience at Walmart. It is truly dystopian. You actually browse with a little cart and like you can grab things off the fake virtual shelves.
Is it the retail version of the Meet the Pyro video from Valve?
No, it's gray and sad. It's a liminal space, but it's a liminal digital space. It doesn't feel like a place you're supposed to be. Like you just want to get out of it, which is weird because usually with shopping experiences, they want you to stay as long as possible and make impulse choices. They've not done a good job, at least in the demo I saw, of making it feel like a place I want to spend money.
Speaking of companies that haven't done a good job.
Yeah. PayPal faces lawsuit for freezing customer accounts and funds. This was 3 different people, 2 in California, 1 in Chicago.
They're trying to come up with enough people to make this into a class action suit. Because apparently sometimes PayPal will just take your money.
And not explain it, yeah.
PayPal gets everything that they deserve. If all of these people get double their money back and 1 million people more, Facebook still will not have gotten out. Yeah.
Boiler Snake's been really gypped by.
Yeah. I mean, it's everybody that has dealt with PayPal. And it's like, is it because PayPal deals with the dregs of humanity? Or do they take advantage of the fact that they have sometimes dealt with the dregs of humanity in order to screw well-meaning people out of, their hard-earned cash? Probably a little column A, a little column B. But still, if they're going to act like a bank, they should be regulated like a bank. If they're going to act like a lender, they should be regulated like a lender. There are certain financial rules and controls, and they've been able to get away with without following the rules for a long time.
See also some cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, ain't it the truth? This is also fun, the whole runaway dollar money printer go burr. This is not great.
Netflix raises monthly subscription prices in U.S. and Canada.
I think you still got Netflix, right?
Well, I have Netflix, but I don't really have Netflix, if you know what I'm saying.
I can never get rid of Netflix. Mom watches it too much.
Oh, so we don't look at it that often.
It's just disappointing. Maybe I should build my own private media server that's just incredible and just be like, here, use that.
But you'll pick shows out and she'll not like them.
Yeah.
What kind of shows does she watch?
She really likes watching the English real estate shows.
Really?
Yeah, she likes to. She's just like that. This was like an overturned barrel out in the country, and it sold for £400,000. And she's just like, I don't. They literally like.
Does she watch HGTV like the American?
No,
she just likes the British ones.
Yeah, just the British one.
Weird.
Yeah. So and it's like there was one house that was like an old ship, and it was like, oh, it was a shipwrecked ship, and then they turned it up and built the house, and then they built the addition on it, and she's like, this is magical. It would be like living in some kind of fantasy land.
I think I know what show that is. Is it like the one where it's just unique houses?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's not really unique house. It reads like they're not unique. Like this is just a typical house in the countryside in England. But
there was a British show that was like weird houses. I can't remember the name of it, and it was popular for a while.
There was one where the people were like, they'll show 3 houses, and it's like they have to pick because that's the thing.
Yeah.
And it was like the bottom of a well, and then like a country manor, and then something else. And the family was like, "We love the bottom of the well. It's just so unique."
That's House Hunters. There's a version of that in the U.S. too.
She was like screaming at her TV, like, "What's wrong with you? Why would you want to live at the bottom of a well?"
The other big meme from House Hunters is like, "I collect butterflies, and I have a budget of $3 million for my first home." And it's like, what?
Yeah. It's a lot of those houses in the UK is like £600,000, and it's a shoebox, and it's just,
what are you paying for?
Who is buying this? Speaking of things, like, why are you buying this?
Some Roku smart TVs are now showing banner ads over live TV.
Yeah, it's like, would you like a sleep number bed on the live? It's like, no, just kill it with fire. At that point, just eject it from your household. And
see, I got my mom a Roku for Christmas. I'm hoping she's not having that, but
this is apparently like Roku TVs, like the built-in.
It's not the individual units.
Yeah, so it might be the TV provider doing it. LG has been insanely terrible about this. So LG is just unacceptable with some of their stuff.
My mom's really excited about the Roku because she had a Prime account, but she didn't know how to access all the movies and stuff on Prime. And now that she has the Roku, she's watching nonstop Hallmark movies.
Nice. This is something that I was really excited about this week.
Yeah. A good story. John Deere hit with class action lawsuit for alleged tractor repair monopoly.
So
is it even alleged? I feel like it's an open secret.
Somebody pointed out finally, basically, that's like, hey, these are basically motor vehicles. There are special rules that you have to follow with repairability to motor vehicles. Let's see what happens. So we'll see if this case is allowed to move forward. But the case makes a lot of good points, like John Deere protecting their stuff with DRM and making it difficult to fix intentionally, not providing documentation, not providing spare parts, actively working against some of the repair shops. There were some really, really just devious examples in ways that small service shops have been blocked from doing repairs in what they filed. So I think they've got a pretty good case.
If you really wanted to reach, you could even say that's like a matter of national security, right? Because that's food supply.
Yeah, it's like you're interfering with our ability to fix our own stuff.
Yeah, don't mess with the farmers in this country.
Yeah, so anyway, there was some video card news last week. There were some video card happenings last week. Oh boy, some things happened. But the first story we have about that.
NVIDIA's AI-powered scaling makes old games look better without a huge performance hit.
This is deep learning dynamic super resolution. And those added to the latest RTX cards. Yep. So 145 FPS native and 108 FPS with the DSR 4X and DLDSR 2.5X. And they cut off the frame rate. Why would you do that?
I was going to say open it up in another tab, but I imagine that's probably an image style on the website, right?
Yeah, it's I think we're screwed. Yep.
Oh no. Wow, it's cut off.
Yeah, the Verge.
They just cut it off entirely.
They messed that one up.
Fire the intern who entered this into the content management system.
Yeah, presumably though. Yeah, pretty good stuff. And this is not necessarily having to know all that much about what's going on inside the game or the game engine. It's just the final rendered frame. So it is nice that we have multiple graphics cards companies competing to come up with the best algorithm and the best bang for the buck and the best product that you can actually buy. There may be some relief on the video card horizon in terms of being able to buy a video card for gaming because
Intel to unveil ultra-low voltage Bitcoin mining ASIC in February.
Yeah, so this is actually a second-generation product, and there's a company that Intel is partnered with that's going to buy at least 25% of the available stuff that Intel is producing. So we don't really have concrete details on how fast or how good these are going to be, but if they're very fast and Intel's making a lot of them, then it will probably depress the value of graphics cards for the purposes of mining, which I'm sure gamers will appreciate.
Certainly would be nice.
The prices still probably won't return to normal, or
because they can make money.
Yeah,
and people are used to paying it now
for years. So, yeah. Speaking of prices that are
absolutely insane, Apple AR headset could cost consumers over $2,000.
Listen, I was drinking the Steve Ballmer Kool-Aid when he said, "Oh, Apple is going to have a $700 phone, and we've got a subsidized $200 phone." What person in their right mind would buy an iPhone for $700 when you can get a flagship phone for $200? And then,
is this a real photo? I thought that they hadn't confirmed this yet.
This is not real.
Okay, I didn't think so.
Apple insiders, yeah, they just put an Apple logo on that.
It looks like you're like a Cyclops.
There's literally nothing else to this story.
There's also no nose bridge on that mock-up.
I would even go so far as to say that that Apple Insider was paid to run this story just so the executives at Apple could be like, well, let's see how much negative back a hole into 2,000. Let's go 3,500.
Let's gauge interest, and then we'll see. I didn't read the comments on that article. Were people like, yeah, I'd pay that?
Yeah. Apple it's like the people, there will be people who will buy it.
I don't know. They seem a little critical, but I'm sure people who are really Apple fans will probably buy it regardless.
Well, Apple wouldn't be charging $3,500 for it if it wasn't worth $3,500.
Yeah. Oh, that doesn't sound like them at all. Or any company, really.
Oh, who would turn away free money? That's just crazy. Oh, wait, what is this?
Mozilla stops accepting cryptocurrency. Wikipedia may be next. Are dominoes falling?
There was a fairly critical story a couple of weeks ago about how Mozilla was accepting cryptocurrency, but that's not new. That's been the case for a long time. But it got enough negative press that, hey, they said, let's put a pause on that.
Well, it's Friday while we're recording this, and right before we started, I looked at Twitter, and Twitter trending, it was Bitcoin crash again. So I think, what was it, 38K, I think is what it was at time of recording. It may be sprung back up by now. I don't know.
38, from 60 to 38, that's quite a swing.
Yeah.
Well, we alluded to this in the government section, but now here it is finally.
Major record labels sue YouTube DL's hosting provider.
So the hosting provider doesn't actually host or provide YouTube DL. This is literally just YouTube DL's public webpage that says this is what the tool does, this is how it works. A lot of the people here, this is in Germany, and the German people that are involved here, some of them point out that, wait a minute, all computers and storage media in Germany has a tax on it for media piracy. Home taping and home recording, non-commercial recording uses are allowed in Germany because everybody in Germany pays a surcharge, a tax on recordable media that goes to the recording industry. Yeah, and so this is saying, YouTube DL circumvents YouTube's rolling cipher technology. This might sound familiar. They tried it here in the U.S. GitHub put up $1 million of legal defense money to fight it on GitHub. The project was reinstated on GitHub. They tried the facilitating piracy argument here in the U.S. This is intellectually dishonest of the recording industry for a lot of reasons. Two, it's very sort of greedy and antithetical to a functioning society. Like, you can't own culture. This is really what that's tantamount to. I don't believe that YouTube DL is being used to facilitate mass widespread piracy. I just don't believe it. You could use it for some kinds of piracy, but for things like YouTube originals that are paid,
we have a story about that later,
and YouTube Red, and there's a different protection mechanism that's in play. And so really the recording industry doesn't want people to be able to save things off of YouTube. I've got some news for you. You've been able to tape things off the radio. They're really
That's what I used to do to make mixtapes as a kid. Like, I would put a tape thing in there and put my favorite song on the radio would come on and you record it really quick.
They're trying really hard to stuff that genie back in the bottle to the point that I really think that it should be like the corporate death penalty at this point, because they've just exhausted everybody. They're just relentless. They're annoying you to wear you down to the point where it's like, all right, I guess maybe I could kind of see your argument. But it's actually idiocy, and worse, it's locking up parts of your individual culture where you can't physically make a mixtape anymore. Like, part of the joy of the human experience is sharing it. It's like, I found this thing. Check out this thing that I found. It is really amazing. Not, some sort of hardened criminal mass conspiracy. I guarantee you that the executives that are involved in this have a much more corrupt ethical compass than your average person. I mean, that goes without saying, don't you think?
Yeah. And the thing that's kind of sad about it is sometimes stuff just gets removed from YouTube. Sometimes the creator's like, I don't want it up anymore, but maybe you just want a copy for yourself to enjoy.
What kind of world is it that people that are so ethically corrupt that they can weaponize your own feeling of wanting to act ethically? It's like, it's not ethical to be able to make copies of stuff from YouTube. They would weaponize that feeling in you to go against your own best interest to support this kind of a move. It's really, I really hope that the German courts don't side with the recording industry. It is hideously evil.
I think
Because
they probably will. Doesn't Germany kind of have a history of that? I might be wrong, but
it's not great. The whole YouTube originals thing. Oh, they're out.
speaking of that, YouTube will stop making most original shows. Did anyone watch these?
No. The one Cobra Kai, this Karate Kid story thing, Netflix acquired it. That started on YouTube.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think that was the nail in the coffin. People at YouTube were like, let's come up with something that's really amazing and original. And I watched a couple episodes of it. It's not my show, but there are a lot of people that like it. And I get that it's like, this is really good because it's, what happens when Danielson grows up and is kind of an ass. It's because it's like, he won. But it's like, how is it in daily life? Like, how does he
after that?
And then the Cobra Kai guy is like, how does that work out? So it's a fun premise for a show, I suppose. But anyway, YouTube came up with that. The YouTube executives, the YouTube originals thing, like they came up with that, and it is actually a really successful show. So I think the final nail was when that show was doing so well on Netflix and did so poorly on YouTube Red that they had to look at that and say, all right, we're out.
Most of the stuff that I've seen on the YouTube originals is always like, Instagram influencer kind of types, and it's like our daily life in our giant pool house with 20 other YouTubers, and I don't really understand the appeal.
I don't think anybody wants that. It's like it
already exists. You don't have to pay for it either. It's all over YouTube.
The only reason that we have the audience that we do is because I think most of our audience feels like they connect with us, and so when they're sitting around watching the news, it's like we're all sitting around a table talking about and mocking the things that are going on.
Yeah.
It's a much more personal connection than YouTube.
Here I am live from my mansion.
Yeah.
But, I guess some people like that kind of stuff. So, there is a market for it, but whatever reason, people do not like it when you have to pay for it.
Yeah. And Google is also working on their own AR thing.
Oh, I should have put those together. I missed that. I went by company, not by headline.
It's
Google is building an AR headset.
Yeah, Project Iris. So, the Google Glass wasn't enough. It's like, we need to go deeper. Okay.
Again, it's not real yet, so.
Also,
Google hires PayPal veteran as part of crypto push.
Yeah, Arnold Goldberg to run its payments division comes after Google previously abandoned push into banking, according to Bloomberg. So, I would guess that Google is playing the long game here, and they're imagining a future where ad tech isn't their major source of revenue. And if that's the case, micropayments on some sort of crypto thing is probably how that's going to work.
Pay 5 bits to access this article.
Yeah.
That's what we're going toward.
And actually, look, if the internet were fast and ad-free and, mainly just fast and ad-free, like when we put the news together, the level of jank that we endure from major websites is crazy. And
half the time when you see like these weird little tiny news sites, it's like, why did they pick that one? It's usually a paywall alternative.
Yeah, if it was something like, would you, if I'm spending less than, $2 or $3 a day on our browsing, or if it cost, $3 to put an episode of the news together versus dealing with that.
Yeah.
I would pay the $3.
I think, though, the part of me is just like, that is so dystopian that we're just being nickeled to dime to death on so many subscription fees. I hate it. It actually makes me not want to participate in any of it. I don't know that feeling is strong enough for most consumers, though. I think most people are just like, yeah, whatever, I'll do another subscription service.
Yeah, there was one of those, it might have been a Dark Mirror episode or something on Netflix, but they had one of those dystopian sci-fi shows, and when the characters got low on money, they would agree to have an ad buddy accompany them. And so it's like, I can't afford lunch, and so you would have an ad buddy go to lunch with you, and it seemed to be like an Uber Eats kind of a thing, except instead of the person delivering the food, they would just come to you with a pitch and say, do you know about these products, and how's this, and how does that work, and blah blah blah, and then they would pay for your lunch or pay for your bus ticket or whatever.
That's how you're talking about, like the gatekeeping of culture. I feel that way about most cultural output we have now. It's mostly just a product.
That's prophetic. That's going to happen.
And that's what it feels like. This is a nerdy thing. We didn't include this as a story, but like Amazon's doing a Lord of the Rings show, and they're adapting a really interesting time period of Tolkien's lore. And I know it's going to be bad. It's just going to be a product, and it's going to lose the whole heart of the original, and that's really disappointing to me.
It's like, what is it? Galadriel? Is that did I say that right?
Yeah, Galadriel.
Her morning routine begins with Amazon Basics face wash.
Yeah,
like
that's what it's going to be, something like that. Or like, there's been some leaks. I don't know how true they are yet, but some of the stuff that they've written, it's like, this is just, you just wiped your ass with his books.
Speaking of that,
Amazon heads to the mall with prototype clothing store.
Because of course, Amazon is looking at clothing stores and they're saying, listen, we've got a clothing printer in the back, like our book printer. We can print all this stuff for pennies on the dollar. Why don't we just, rent some space in an abandoned mall for $5 a month and just see how it goes?
Our abandoned mall is too expensive for most local businesses, but Amazon won't be.
Yeah, the store, which will sell women's and men's clothing as well as shoes and other accessories, will open at Americana at Brand, a mall in Glendale, California. So they're spending some money on this particular mall.
I wonder if it's a sad mall, like
Yes.
the dying mall.
Yeah, I'm sure that it is. It would almost have. Well, I mean, it's California though. Maybe not.
I saw an argument that like the original Gothic aesthetic was about like decaying opulence, and that's why old Victorian houses were a big part of that aesthetic. And now the new Gothic is going to be the old 80s shopping mall. Decaying opulence. So I was like, oh, that is kind of weird, isn't it?
Speaking of decaying opulence,
Yeah.
what an amazing lead in.
Microsoft to buy Activision Blizzard in $68.7 billion video game mega deal. The FTC wants to know your location.
Bobby Kotick is
Probably out.
is being given an amazing golden parachute. He was the source of some controversy.
Did they confirm he's leaving? It kind of sounded like he was going to, but I didn't see anything that confirmed it yet.
Gosh, they've really made it sound like he's out, but yeah, they haven't actually said.
They've not said he's gone.
He's for sure 100% gone.
The tweet I saw from him was like, "Oh, I'll be around to like handle the changeover," but that kind of makes it sound like he won't be there.
You'll always
past that.
feel my breath on your neck.
Probably literally. Whoa. Probably good news for Blizzard, but poor news for the consumer because now Microsoft owns like every massive video game franchise you can think of.
They own all the crafts now. I think Warcraft
And Minecraft.
and Starcraft, and so
My husband sent me an add-on for WoW that was Clippy, reminding you to check your mana.
I think the episode for today's news is probably going to be nobody expects the Microsoft acquisition.
Oh, that's a good title. We'll forget that though. By Monday, we'll forget when we do the titles.
I wish I could make the sound. Hopefully, making the sound doesn't get us,
Demonetized.
the Spanish Inquisition sound. But that's it. All right. For Friday, we've got a lot of nonsense.
Yeah, it's mostly nonsense. Oops, all nonsense. We will see you guys then. Bye. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Level 1 News. Today is Friday at the end of January. I forgot the date.
28th.
28th. We're here with security and nonsense.
There's so much security. So much. Locations and contact data on 510,000 vulnerable people stolen in Red Cross data breach. The Red Cross.
That sucks.
People that help refugees and people that have been displaced because the regime of their country has changed. These are the kinds of people that are helping the Red Cross. The Red Cross has asked, whoever stole this, please just delete it. Because you could get these people killed. Or worse.
Also, why would you target the Red Cross right now when we're having like a health crisis across the country? They're begging people to donate blood.
They might not have known.
Yeah.
Or it could be one of these regimes is really angry. So like the incoming people are upset that the Red Cross is helping the displaced people. It's like, no, we must erase those people from existence so that no one ever misses them.
Oh, that's the sadder option. I'm going to assume it was a mistake.
Oops, I accidentally hacked the Red Cross. And it's like, Barry, what have we told you about hacking hospitals and the Red Cross? Come on.
Not again. And then the audience all laughs.
Speaking of not again, but then you kind of a head scratcher, there was this headline from Torrent Freak.
VPN provider agrees to block torrent traffic in the Pirate Bay on U.S. servers.
Now, I've got some news for you. You can download Linux distros on a lot of other things via torrent. But, again, the kleptocracy that we find ourselves in with the media companies, they're like, no, people are using this VPN to sidestep our reach and our gaze. We must shut it down.
Is it not enough that you've turned everything into a streaming service and a subscription? Come on.
This person is highly suspicious. They only have one subscription account. We must observe them.
That's probably I'm honored to be on a list with you all. We're probably both on that list.
So this VPN provider stood accused of failing to take action against subscribers who were pirating films. It's like, not okay. I mean, that's like your electric company failing to take action against people who use the electricity to pirate films. Or the water company for failing to take action to not give water to the people who commit crimes. Come on.
When you put it that way, it really does highlight how absurd it is.
Open Subtitles hacked. 7 million subscribers' details have been leaked online. Open Subtitles was a nice repository for getting subtitles for things, because sometimes you need subtitles for things because you can't hear all that well.
Or because every movie is mixed poorly now.
Yes. It's like millions of subscribers' details exposed. This is another one that I hope the hackers are just like, well, they asked for a BTC ransom not to disclose the info and a promise to delete the data, but it was not a low amount of money.
It never is it?
It's very sad. Very, very sad. This one is less sad. This one is like, okay, you've attacked the Red Cross. You've attacked, open subtitles. But this one...
People were losing their mind about this earlier this week. Crypto.com CEO confirms hundreds of accounts were hacked, hedges on other details.
Well, this is a major advertiser on YouTube. And they work with Visa and other things, and they really did not handle this well at all. Initially, they denied it. They said, no, this is... We didn't lose anything, and then there were more details.
Did they ever get the cash back for anybody? No. Okay, I didn't think so. And people were losing their mind. I'm like, well, technically, they don't have to do anything, do they?
If the cash comes back, it will come out of their own money or an insurance fund or something like that. So, yeah, I don't know. It's not a great situation to be a Crypto.com customer. It's like some thoughts from the last 24 hours. No customer funds were lost, no downtime. And then it was like, oh, well. Actually, yeah.
Will this arouse the wrath of any regulatory bodies, you think? Or will they just continue to ignore it?
Yeah, in a tweet claiming that in reality, Crypto.com's losses amounted to about 15 million in ETH, which honestly, that's, for Crypto.com, that's probably not a huge loss. They've probably spent more than that on YouTube ads, to be honest.
Wow.
It's not, 15 million doesn't go as far as it used to.
No, you're not wrong right now.
This is a fun one.
Safari bug can leak some of your Google account info and recent browsing history. I'll say it once, and I'll say it again. Safari is the new IE.
It's not only Safari the new IE, but this really, if Apple were serious about personal security and personal privacy, they would be hiring a lot more people to do security auditing and hardening of their products. We saw in the recent macOS update that the firewall changes was a thin veneer firewall changes. It's like, oh, is this an Apple program? Oh, cool, don't worry about the firewall. Oh, it's not an Apple program? No, it's going to be firewall to hell and back. But that doesn't really work at an operating system level because it's really easy to impersonate Apple programs. That's a poor design. That's a design by somebody who is inexperienced designing such things. This is kind of similar. This is, it's like, the browser has to be hardened against, an adversary that might be lurking in the background with JavaScript. And this is something that's trivially easy to exploit to know what websites you visited, which is hugely valuable to advertisers. Probably a lot
people pay good money for that.
Yeah, probably advertisers have known about this for a long time and have been using it, I would wager.
How furious are they going to be when they patch this?
Yeah, it's like, your unique Google user ID is blah. And it's like, they can uniquely identify you with that. And this is more of a feature, not a bug. So they've got to harden that and hope that that's going to be okay. So things are getting real spicy in Europe.
Hopefully by the time this is released, it's not gotten spicier. But
yeah, Russia is spicy with a lot of spicy Ukraine. So I don't know, but this was the headline.
Microsoft warns of destructive cyber attack on Ukrainian computer networks.
So it wasn't just the computer networks, it was the government computer networks.
Yes.
Mainly the government computer networks.
I think we were supposed to cover this story last week, and
were.
we missed it when we were doing our tabs.
Yeah, an attack on the Ukraine's Central Election Commission during a presidential election in 2014, which Russia sought unsuccessfully to change the result. And this was not, the context of that change the result was not to actually change the result, but was to sow some seeds of dissent. But that was intercepted and caught in time. This attack was much more successful, this more recent attack in 2022 that we're discussing here. So,
it's so bad.
Definitely not great. Another thing that's definitely not great, maybe.
U.S. to let teens drive big rigs in test program to help ease supply chain shortage.
It's like, have you graduated high school? Would you like to drive a big rig?
So the current rule is you have to be at least 21 to cross borders in a big rig. But because of labor shortages and just general shortages, they're begging, please let 18-year-olds drive them.
I don't know if 18-year-olds generally have their stuff together enough
to do this. Well, This reminds me a little bit of the story that came out earlier. I guess it was late 2021, where it was like Wendy's was it Wendy's or just fast food in general had successfully petitioned the government of Wisconsin to allow 14-year-olds to work. It's like, are we going back toward child labor? I mean, well, I worked as a teenager, but not at 14.
Here you can work when you're 12, 40 hours a week in summer and 12 hours a week when school's in session.
Is it like for farm hands, I assume?
No, you can, fast food, whatever.
Wow.
The exceptions for farm hands are even more hours. But in summertime, 40 hours a week is totally fine. But you're not allowed to do overtime. It's like overtime is strictly not allowed. But 40 hours in a week in summertime, as long as there's no school, totally okay.
My other favorite part of that Wisconsin thing was they also were paid less than minimum wage. I was like, come on. Really just poking at the little. I bet they're doing the same thing with this. They're like, we'll hire 18-year-olds who don't know what they're worth.
Yeah.
And
literally anybody that can get the job done.
Yeah, which a lot of people are concerned, of course, too, that this will cause accidents, which seems likely. But
I would be. There is a labor shortage, but at the same time, a lot of companies are reporting record profits, and it's like, well, take some of the profits and use it to pay for things.
Yeah, like investing in your staff.
That's not always going to be the case. There's going to be winners and losers. There's definitely going to be some businesses that go under because it's an unsustainable model. So,
people always need things shipped, though. So, surely you're making enough money to pay a little better. It's a hard job, though. I have a friend of mine from my old job. Her husband was a trucker, and he always said, having to be on the road away from his wife and kid kind of sucked, but I don't know.
You know what else sucks? Using government websites online.
Yes. Oh, it's so true. IRS will soon require selfies for online access.
So this is working with ID.me, which is a third-party service, and boy, I just am not confident in the security of this.
Of a third-party service for the government? Yeah.
And as I was reading this, I was thinking, this is going to be an Equifax situation. They're going to leak all of this. It's going to be an Equifax thing where you use a webcam on your laptop or your phone camera, and you have to move your face around, which they retain, I'm sure, to use for identification. And the whole time I was thinking, this is Equifax and it's going to end badly. And then they talk about how, they have to do this because the IRS was previously partnered with Equifax, which would use information from your credit report to verify your identity. And since that's now a bit of a faux pas, we're doing this other thing. And so it's like, yes, let's swallow the spider to eat the fly. Excellent.
There's also a precedent of government agencies losing this kind of data. Didn't India try to do a face thing like this and then immediately got hacked?
Yeah. And so, Brian Krebs has got the skinny. He knows what's up. He knows what's coming. And so he's written this wonderful article that's not saying, this is going to end badly, but it's definitely, a situation that's going to end badly. So it's like, you need a multi-factor authentication, a push notification. Do you want to use our ID.me application on your phone? It's like, no. I really don't want to install that. But at least you could use a YubiKey or something else. But I would wager that once you've enrolled your YubiKey, that's really good. Of course, what's going to happen is, somebody installs a YubiKey on grandma's IRS account, and then grandma can't actually get her tax refund or anything like that anymore, because this is way beyond what, that class of citizen is going to be capable of.
Oh, I hate it.
Yeah. It's like, can you fill out a postcard that's like, don't enable online service for my account, because
I don't want this.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, I'm not getting a return anyway.
No. Speaking of things that no one wants,
Canada's Prince Andrew High School announces plan to change name. Probably a little overdue. It's been like 2 years since we found out about some things.
But it's getting worse and worse. The Queen has disowned Prince Andrew, basically.
Well, she's stripped him of his titles, which I don't really understand a whole lot about the royal family outside of what I've seen on The Crown.
Does somebody that understands the royal family engagement challenge, can you let us know, like, how bad is that?
I think it's pretty bad. Like, he doesn't do any charity appointments. At this point, he's still the Queen's son, and he's allowed to live, in one of their properties, but he basically can't do anything public.
Nice.
So,
yeah.
I mean, if I was his mom and I knew that he had done what he had done, I'd probably be like, "You're not my son anymore." But
there was an episode of Always Sunny about that, where Frank admits that he had a drink company that was selling soft drinks, and it turns out that was the drink company that would supply beverages to Epstein's parties.
Oh, is that from the newest season?
Yeah.
Wow.
13th or 14th season or something. And he's like, look, most of the parties were fine. It's just 5% of the parties were a different kind of party, and it ruined the other 95% of the party. He's like, I'm just supplying the beverages. I'm not asking questions.
It's probably true. Someone had to supply those parties.
Yeah, it's a dark kind of humor because it's so true to life. And
it would have had to come out because there would have been caterers and wow. I never thought about that angle, but of course they did.
Eventually it comes out. Kind of like what happened to the charity CEO in our next story.
Oh, cat charity CEO quits over colleague keeping 18 cats in-house.
So in their own guidelines, they say, all the cats, need space. If you have multiple cats, they need their own water bowl and their own food bowl and their own scratching post. And so, somebody correctly pointed out here is like, wait, does the CEO have 18 scratching posts and 18 food bowls and 18 water bowls and 18 litter boxes?
Probably have like 2 litter boxes for 18 cats.
Yeah, that's a little
just having one litter box and one cat. I'm like, ooh.
Yeah. Or it's like, you go to use the litter box and there's another cat in the litter box and it's just like, I can't wait, guys.
Yeah.
It's not great.
That's really common with, or not super common, I guess, but more common than you might think with animal shelters, where if you look at their history of who they've adopted to, a lot of times they don't have hardly any adoptions, and then it's just a animal hoarder situation. So you kind of have to vet. Yeah, you have to vet your animal shelter when you're looking for a pet.
Have we ever had a story from Anime News Network?
No, and I was wondering how Ryan found this. He reads this a lot. Final Fantasy, I don't know.
7?
Is that 7?
No, 8.
8.
No, 7.
Oh, watch Americans struggle with Roman numerals. Final Fantasy
7. Tifa.
Tifa?
Tifa porn has interrupted an Italian Senate meeting.
We've been demonetized. Is Tifa the name of the character?
Yes.
Okay.
So, Final Fantasy 7. Yeah, it's just...
It wasn't anyone... Well, as far as we know, it wasn't anyone in the actual meeting. They think this was a prankster.
Yeah.
But it was like a long time before it got shut off, which is really embarrassing.
30 seconds. Yeah. So, and our award this week for the least researched headline goes to abc4.com.
I mean, they go across it in the article.
A little, just very slightly. It's like, Woods Cross Police now have a canine trained to look out for the stuff that we were talking about to do with Always Sunny. The stuff that,
Chillin'.
Yeah.
Children's.
Yeah, and so they're just like, wait a minute, how does the canine sniff that specific thing out? And it turns out the canine sniffs out electronic devices,
which could be literally anything.
Yes, so
you could just have a folder full of memes, and it would sniff it out the same.
The police, have spun that an amazing way, but I guarantee you, if they find a USB drive with somebody's cold crypto wallet, that is going right into the helicopter fund.
Oh, I can't wait to get that tank to use on the civilians. I mean,
Yeah, it's like, do we want to charge you with a crime or prove that it's connected to any kind of criminal wrongdoing? Nope.
That's ours.
Right into the helicopter fund.
The dog triggered on it, so.
Literally any piece of electronics. And, if you're accused of that, are you even going to fight back against that? It's like, we think this was involved in one of those.
That's all they have to say,
Yeah,
right? And if it gets picked up by media, it's hard to fight.
It's like, listen, no, you just keep all of that. We just don't talk about this. And it's like, they're like, sounds great to us. Seems like extortion. Seems like a criminal act in and of itself. What do I know? I'm just an ordinary citizen. Clearly, I'm naive and don't understand.
What you're saying is we should never travel with a USB stick or any electronics ever again.
Yeah, pretty much. It seems how that's going to go. And then this happened.
Oh, we switched that around. Missouri Highway Patrol mistakenly sends Batman-themed alert.
So they were testing their blue alert system? Something? Yeah, the blue alert system, and they inadvertently, and so the test message has something to do with Batman.
Is that for like a missing person, or?
I don't know.
Blue alert. Golden alert is when it's a missing old person.
And amber alert's a missing child.
Yeah.
Which seems weird, because wouldn't you think amber is... Wait, no. Is it amber?
Yeah, that's an amber alert for a kid.
Okay. So...
I don't know what color would I pick for a child.
What color do you think the real estate listing would be for a house that has this feature?
What's the Zestimate for it? Probably a lot, because it's an old Victorian. South Milwaukee home features four toilet communal bathroom, which at first you're like, that doesn't sound too bad, but then you look at the picture and it's like, wait, there's no partitions here. You can hold hands and communally poop together.
This is built in 1851.
What? I have so many questions about that. Can you imagine the listing too? They're like, there's 4 toilets. Oh, there's 4 bathrooms? No. There's 4 toilets.
Why? Yeah, since 1851, several people have owned the house and no one has added partitions to the bathroom. Could the new owners be the ones to make the addition?
This article is strange. This reminds me of, there's a subreddit that I discovered that I really like called Zillow Gone Wild. It's just weird posts like this.
Yeah, I don't know. This one was a lot of fun too.
Chinese couple trapped on lockdown date get engaged. Good for them.
So they were locked down because of the thing.
Right. They did another set of lockdowns in China.
They were on a date. A 28-year-old woman, and then the date was much longer than expected because of the lockdown. And it turns out, they decided they could live together. They could tolerate each other long enough to live together.
That's kind of surprising because, well, I can't decide if it's just puppy love or if it's like the real thing. Because if you're locked in with someone, it's really easy to get on each other's nerves. But maybe they're still in the puppy love stage.
Yeah, our souls are compatible and we get along very well, and both our parents are happy. Well, call the priest. Let's get married.
They can't have a wedding ceremony until the lockdown's over.
So it would seem. Also, probably would need to take care of this problem outside the current global problem, because this is apparently another different problem caused by the other problem.
California City plans to use lasers to solve growing crow problem. We had this problem in the town I went to university in.
Why is there a growing crow problem? Because no one's outside.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Sunnyvale plans to use small green lasers to try to scare off crows from roosting in the downtown area. It's had a crow problem for years, but during the thing, it's really taken off because there's nobody there. Nature is reclaiming. Well, it's not that nobody's there, it's just nobody's going outside. Nature is reclaiming downtown.
They're getting less scared of the people. I think the town I went to college in, they did it would play a sound, I think. I don't know if it was crows or something else, some other bird sound, and that would scare them off periodically. Oh,
it was starlings. So if you played crow sounds, it would scare off the starlings.
Okay.
Because the crows will eat starlings, I guess, if they get hungry enough.
Wow, that's brutal.
Something brutal like that. I'm pretty sure that Oscar Mayer has the product to get rid of those crows. It would scare them off.
Oscar Mayer's baloney face mask quickly sells out.
Yeah, it's not... It looks like baloney, but it's not actually baloney.
Yeah, it's actually these are popular now. They're like paper masks, but they're wet, and you put them on your face, and then just... You look like that. You look like you've got baloney on your face.
I'm pretty sure this is also photoshopped.
It might not be. I mean, it probably is because every media image is usually photoshopped or face-tuned in some way, but that's probably what the mask looks like.
How sad is that? You're the model that's submitting your photos to the stock photo website, and it's like somebody buys your photo to use it
and
for
then just
$15
put that on
or
it.
whatever, and then it's that, and it's just like, oh.
Like, it'd be funny if it was just a regular face mask in the original, and then they just tuned it to be pink.
Oh, it's just so disappointing. So disappointing. This would also be really disappointing. I don't think that there's no, like, I would get to the end of the 7-hour wait and then just be like, what am I doing with my life?
Honestly, that's how I'd feel just walking into a Disney. Fans at Disney World reportedly wait almost 7 hours for a dragon-shaped popcorn bucket.
There
just
you go.
a piece of plastic with Disney's name on it. Store.level1text.com.
Why is this happening? Also, speaking of why is this happening,
Wendell was really intrigued by this story, so much so that he actually brought up other articles so we could look at it.
I think it might be the first time we've ever included 4chan.
M&M characters redesigned for a more dynamic, progressive world.
Yeah, CBS News here has 1,000 words on this, but let's just go to the image.
So you see in the original, the green M&M, the first woman M&M, was wearing go-go boots, which were considered kind of slutty, and then they announced the brown M&M, also a woman, was wearing kind of slutty heels, and now they've changed that. Hers are more work appropriate, and they've removed the go-go boots from the green M&M entirely. Also, the orange one is also supposed to be less anxious.
He's embraced his anxiousness,
which is not a way to go as someone who has anxiety. But
so yeah, this is a PR stunt. So like the ad agency behind this was like, we're going to make up some crazy sounding nonsensical things that we're not actually serious about, and we don't think these things, but it's going to be so outrageous it's going to get lots of PR
It did.
hits.
Rolling Stone did an article that was like, let the green M&M be a slut. That was the title. I probably didn't demonetize for that, but that was the title of it, and it was trending all over Twitter. People were losing their minds.
In the Rolling Stone. It's like, why should you feel guilty for enjoying yourself? It's like, okay, sounds good.
It's like they just changed your shoes, but okay. There's also apparently like M&M's lore, because some people thought that the green and the brown M&M were in a relationship, and I was like, do people know about that?
Well, the write-up from the ad agency said that they were kind of catty and would fight with each other.
Oh, that was the previous, but now they're women supporting women.
Yeah, so I guess that's good.
So if you're a shipper for the green and brown M&M, you've got canon proof from the company now.
I've just noticed too that another subtle change is like, okay, their legs are all pretty consistent, and now their legs are tinted slightly the color
Human-esque.
that they are. So like, no, like blue guys, his legs are slightly blue, green, slightly green, yellow, slightly yellow, red.
Yeah, they're not all just like tan.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Orange is slightly orange. I see you, graphic designer, screaming for originality, trying to claw your way out of
that poor graphic designer's like, I went to, some fancy school. I have an MFA. This is what I'm doing.
And I'm changing the color of legs
It's
on
on an
cartoon
M&M.
M&Ms. Well, we have this, and this is kind of a happy story. I'm glad this is working out, in all honesty. I mean, the world is a weird situation. It could definitely be worse.
Formerly bullied man finds happiness married to Hatsune Miku. We've done a story about this before.
Yes, this is a follow-up. This is like the first story that we did on this was like 3 or 4 years ago. He's very happy.
And I guess he does like social media posts. It's like basically like uplifting content for people. He looks very professional in his suit and tie. Like he got dressed up for the interview.
I think he did get dressed up for the interview. So
I don't understand it, but I guess, he's making it work. He says he's become less socially anxious than what he used to be since he's been married to the anime girl.
Nice. Sounds good.
Good for him.
Is
that the last story?
Yeah, his coworkers are still judging him though.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, like, they all invite, hey, do you want to come out and like get a beer, or do you want to go get lunch today or get a coffee?
Don't bring Hatsune.
She really is just a damper on the whole party.
Just strap her to a Segway and, bring her along.
I mean, she's like the size of a coffee machine. You could just tuck her under your arm. Though he has the doll too, it looks like.
Yeah. I wondered if this was shopped or real, and I couldn't tell.
I think that's real. It looks like a doll.
I don't know. I don't know. I can't tell.
You can't trust images anymore.
I don't want to know. I kind of want to think that it's shopped and that this is
what he's really has a relationship with.
Yeah, but I don't know. Maybe not. Could go either way. Yeah, you've wasted another block of time with the Level 1 news. But we thank you for hanging out with us, and we'll see you next week. And Ryan will probably be defrozen by then.
Hopefully. Not cryogenically frozen in his apartment or his house.
Woo!
Right. Bye!